Well, hello, and welcome to the Flying Cow! Moo. That's right, this is the Flying Cow, the podcast that is always different, something completely new, at least most of the time. My name is Clay Johnson, I am your host, and as always, I have my dog Teddy running around here. And for anyone that might be curious about a slight humming noise you may hear in the background, that's just my fan because I live in Atlanta and I don't want to die. So yeah, just wanted to give you guys a heads up as to what's going on the podcast. When I started this project, what I really wanted it to be is, kind of a makeshift network. I wanted to start off slow, have a couple of guests, just randomly talk about whatever they wanted to, talk about movies, talk about this, talk about that. And while I've done a little bit of that, it obviously hasn't been as much as I would like. Plans change, things happen. But I also wanted to, little by little, introduce concepts and review shows and things like that. And like I said, build it out into like an actual network. And so, while the first part of that plan hasn't exactly happened the way I would like, I am now introducing a review show to the feed. I'll still be, open to the idea of, releasing reviews and things like that, but this is something that will come out a little bit more regularly. But it's going to be a limited series. I wanted it to be something that, wasn't a huge commitment in case it didn't work, but was also going to be something unique that you couldn't find anywhere else. And so for that reason, I am reviewing the early 90s PBS Kids Show, Ghostwriter. Now, there are maybe 2 or 3 of you listening that are in your 30s that are pumping your fists going, yeah, I remember Ghostwriter, that show was awesome. Everyone else is scratching their heads saying, I have no idea what that is. It's okay. The basic premise is it's about a group of kids who solve mysteries with the help of a mysterious entity who communicates to them through writing named Ghostwriter. Catchy title, huh? Creative names, these people. But it is very 90s. It is, PBS. So one thing that I've discovered in watching it, because here's the thing, I have kind of an affection for it because I watched it, but I have been rewatching it for this review, and I feel, obviously the fashions are very 90s and some of the lingo, and there are some times that it very much feels like an after school special. But for the most part, I actually feel like it holds up for the demographic. One thing that I do actually really appreciate and applaud, I mean, it's a PBS show, but it's also the early 90s. They're actually very socially conscious. I mean, the show ends up with, I think, 6 kids in the leads, and out of those, during the show's entire run, only 2 of those kids are ever white kids. Everyone else is, black or Latinx or Asian or, so it's diverse in that way. And, it actually, there are a couple instances where, there are sexist ideas that are stated or said, but for the most part, I'm not going to say it's 100%, but for the most part, when those ideas and attitudes are brought out, those characters are not only corrected, but sometimes punished in odd ways. Obviously, you can't get everything. It is the early 90s. There are no outwardly, openly gay characters or anything like that. Not to say that there aren't gay characters. They're just not out. you know, you can, there's always subtext. But yeah, it's an odd little show. And so I would love for you guys to join me and my friends that are going to be reviewing this in going on this little journey. If you want to check out the show, it is actually airing. It is actually, you can find it on YouTube. I will post the links in the notes of this episode. I just wanted to give you guys a heads up as to what this was. So I hope you enjoy the very first episode of Rally FC. You'll understand that later. Well, hello, and welcome to Rally FC. That's right, the Ghostwriter discussion show, where we talk about all things Ghostwriter. Whoever thought you'd hear a podcast about that? My name is Clay Johnson, and here with me today as my guest, I have the wonderfully talented Adena Brumer.
Why, thank you very much. That's a lot of hype there, Clay. Thanks.
It's not hard to live up to. You just spend a couple of minutes with Adena. It's pretty obvious.
Oh, you're so sweet.
So how are you doing today, Adena?
Good. Are we allowed to talk about the pandemic?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we don't want to be too big of a downer, but if you've got something you want to share, this is an open format, so.
Well, I'll share something positive that
okay.
I am on a Netflix series called Sweet Magnolias. So
cool.
Yeah. So that came out May 19th, and I'm in the second episode, and the show's doing great. And the producers just sent all of us a poster of the show.
Hey, awesome!
Yeah, it was a complete and utter surprise. I was like, "What is this?"
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I saw you sharing that online, and I wondered if you were a part of it or not.
Yeah. Yes, I'm in the second episode.
Well, that is awesome.
So,
I'll definitely have to check that out, and everybody else will too. Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, here's the big question, Adena. How much do you hate me for asking you to watch a PBS Kids Show from the 90s?
Oh my god. I don't hate you.
Okay.
I realize why I missed this show.
Yeah.
Because I was in college.
Oh, okay.
So I had no idea about this show until you told me. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, I know, for its demographic, and, it actually had a bit of traction, especially towards the end of its run. But, it was a very niche audience. I think I had, of the people I talked to about this show, I only had one person that was like, oh yeah, I watched that show. So it's going to be a small slice of the pie. But, yeah, I mean, this was, for me, I remember watching this. I was, I think it started in 92. So I would have been 10 in 92.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, it ran until I was, 14 or 15, something like that. But... yeah, so I remember this would come on for me on PBS every Sunday morning, and it was appointment viewing. And there were a couple of ones, I definitely didn't catch every episode when they first came out. I probably didn't start actually watching the show until 93 or 94, but they would rerun most of them. So I definitely saw this first one, but there were, I watched through the whole thing just to prepare for it. And there were definitely some towards the beginning, middle that I was like, I've never seen this.
Wow.
Of course, this was back when, you had to know when something came on to watch your favorite show. You had to
Right.
sit down at a specific time. You know, it wasn't, you know, when you could like DVR and watch whatever you want.
Right. Yeah.
So I mean, I know there were a couple of times that you know, it came on Sunday morning, which, you know, the only reason I probably got to watch it was because my family went to church at a weird time. And, you know, but we were also an active family, so I know there were probably episodes that I missed here and there. So, you know, unless I caught it on reruns, I would just miss it. But yeah, I mean, this was like a big thing for me. I just discovered it on YouTube. Okay, so the weird kind of backstory to this is my sister, you know, I started the pandemic in I was the week after basically both of my jobs told me we don't have anything for you right now. And I was literally about to go on a trip to visit my family. So I was like, I'll do that because that way I won't be alone for months and months on end. So I was, you know, visiting my family in Arkansas during this time. And my sister came over one day and she was like, do you mind if we watch this show? And it was some, you know, kids show on Amazon or whatever that, I don't know, like had a lot of, I think it was called Just Add Magic. But it reminded me a lot of this show. So then I just searched it and found it was on YouTube. And I was like, oh, this would be fun to talk about. So here we are.
So wait, did you watch all 74 episodes before we...
I mean, I did, not in between when I spoke to you and now. I only rewatched the one, but I mean, it's not a long undertaking. You know, the way I'm going to do this is, you know, it's a serialized format so that it's, you know, story arcs. So this first one has I'm sorry, go ahead.
We're only talking about the first episode?
No, we're talking about the first story arc.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So no. I wouldn't have you do that because I didn't want to commit myself to 74 episodes, but I thought I can do 18. You know, if something happens, I can definitely pull off 18.
Sure.
But no. So, you know, we're gonna do story arcs. Because, I mean, if you only talk about one episode, it's only like 22 minutes. There's not a whole lot to talk about.
Well, yeah, because the recaps before the following episodes take up about 3 minutes themselves.
They do. All right, team, grab your notebooks. Oh, those recaps are like entities unto themselves. What I think is so funny is that those recaps establish things in the show sometimes before the show does. There's a thing that I think by like the middle of the show, or maybe even past the middle, they start doing this thing called rewind, where they're like, oh, wait a minute, what was that? And then they're like, look at each other like, oh, this is cool, rewind. Like, okay, yeah, that's real cheesy, guys. But they start doing that in the recaps, like Arc 2 or Arc 3.
Okay.
And they just, for some reason, decide to adopt it in the regular show.
Whatever.
Yeah. All right, but what do you say we go ahead and talk about this story arc, which is called, funnily enough, Ghost Story. Wah, wah. That's one thing about this show. I mean, okay, let's just get some things out in the open right now. Obviously, it is designed for, you know, preteens. You know, kids like, I would say 8 to maybe 12. Teddy disagrees, apparently. Okay, 6.
Hey.
You okay with that? 6? 6 to 12? Okay, he agrees. But yeah, it's definitely, and it's a PBS show. So there are, unlike shows like Dora that directly ask the audience for answers, they instead go through them and then just sit and go through obvious things that are wrong before they come upon the actual answer. And the whole time you're just like, oh my goodness, this is insane. What are you talking about?
Yeah, because the pacing is atrocious.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, but it's intentional?
Well, but here's the thing.
Sure.
I think that it underestimates its audience.
I can agree with that, but I also think that they don't know how young the audience starts. And so they're wanting to cater to as large of an audience as they are. I do think that, I mean, like I said, I was watching the show when I was like 10. I don't know how much anyone, like how much younger would be that interested in what was going on, because, I mean, from an adult standpoint, the stories are pretty low stakes, but from a kid standpoint, some things that they get into seem rather serious. And I don't know about you. When I was rewatching this the first time, I caught myself thinking, oh, this is really intense. And then I'm like, seriously? This is about kids stealing quarters so that they can play a video game.
Right.
But the music does a lot of heavy lifting. The music is really intense.
Yeah. I gotta give this show serious props, though.
Yeah.
For how diverse it is.
Yes. Yeah. See, I mentioned this, and I recorded an intro before I started talking to you. One of the things, I mean, it is PBS, so it's going to be a little bit more socially conscious than some other things from the 90s, but you're right. For a show from the 90s, it is extremely diverse. I mean, at this point, you've got, 4 leads? You've got, Lenny, Jamal, Alex, and Gabby, right?
Yeah.
So out of those, how many of those kids are white? One,
but Lenny's obviously Jewish. So
okay, see, that was a question I had, because just because she is Jewish doesn't mean they're going to practice Judaism or anything like that, but it's never brought up.
Right. So, but to me, as a Jew, I think maybe I projected that, but
honestly, I thought the same thing. Now, I don't know if it was maybe just that the actress was, but they didn't necessarily want to make it part of the character. Because, I mean, her name is Lenny Frazier. Is that...
Right, yeah.
And her dad...
And her dad's a musician.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I just figured Jew.
Sure,
but,
yeah. I mean, honestly, I thought the same thing. I just didn't want to assume,
Yeah, but I mean, I thought, okay, so your main lead is an African-American kid?
Yeah.
And we see his family first?
Yep. First people that we're introduced to in the show are Jamal and his dad, played by Samuel L. Jackson.
Yes!
Which is great. I will say, though, he's only in, the first...
He's in 3 episodes.
Yeah, he's in this story arc and I think the next story arc. But the next story arc was actually the original pilot, but they decided to film this one as a more direct pilot.
Okay.
It's weird, though, because the kids look much younger.
Okay.
Yeah. It's honestly, it's cheesier.
Well, it was a treat to see him. That was really fun.
Absolutely. But just to talk a little bit about what's going on with, just in case people don't watch this episode. So the first thing we do see Jamal and his dad going down to the basement to get a trunk, and while they're pulling out this trunk, they knock over a book, and this blurry magical entity pops out of the book and floats away.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then puts itself into Jamal's jacket.
Yes.
Is it his jacket?
Absorbs itself onto the words on Jamal's jacket. Now, I will say the one issue I had with this thing is, okay, obviously this thing has been trapped in this book, but this book is not like, it's not like hidden on a bookshelf. It's not inside the trunk. It's just propped up on the back of this trunk, and it's somehow never fallen over before. Nobody's ever like moved this book or anything like that. Like it just seems, I mean, you know, the whole show is very contrived, but that just seemed like, wow, really, guys?
Yeah. Yeah.
The next thing we see is, well, I mean, there's a lot. We're not going to go moment by moment because not everything is important. But basically, Jamal has been gifted a new computer by his sister who is going to college. He's typing things in on the computer. And I have to say, here's the thing. I like the characters in this show. They're very silly. They're very flat. They're two-dimensional. But one thing that popped out to me when I was rewatching this show, Jamal is a dork.
Totally.
Because he uses these words like, okay, he types into the computer, "Hey computer, ready for one dynamic dude?" And I'm just like, are you serious right now? Like, let's just put this in context. If Carlton Banks was a middle-class kid, he would be Jamal.
Yes. Agreed. Yeah. He's a sweet, dorky kid.
Yes, he is a sweet, dorky kid that thinks that he is the shit.
Yes.
He just thinks he's very cool. And he's very not.
He's so not.
Yes. Oh, but yeah, so he starts typing in his computer, and his computer starts talking back. And I have to say, for the first lines for this character to send to Jamal, did you find this troubling as well? His first message?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because Jamal has seen some weird looking stuff in the park that night or the night before, and so it's help.
Where are the children? Are they all right?
Right, and so it starts off in such a way where it's actually frightening.
Yeah. Because I mean, even the music is very intense. Like, Jamal is super freaked out, and I don't blame him.
Yeah. Because once we get to why all this is happening, it's really quite mundane.
Oh,
like you said, it's quarters for a video game, but the way it's presented is it's so high stakes.
Yeah, it's presented very high stakes.
And so I think tonally it was way too high.
Yeah.
If it did settle in, and then you realize, it's not the worst thing that's ever happened, and people aren't getting kidnapped or killed or whatever.
Sure.
But it was like, oh my God, what's happening?
Right. I will say though, I think it is set in tone in the way that kids going through it would feel it. Because for kids, everything is high stakes.
Yeah, but as far as this story arc goes, I don't think it was appropriate.
You don't think that the arc was appropriate, or you don't think that the tone?
No, those first sets of messages.
Oh, sure. No, because it's an odd.
There are no missing children. It's missing backpacks. It's missing money. So it's like, it's so misleading.
Yeah. And I think that the idea was that was supposed to be setting up eventually, background into Ghostwriter's original identity. But, especially in this episode, we're not going to get there. So it feels very, I mean, I had forgotten about it, and I just remember thinking, whoa, that's dark. Who are these children? Why are we so worried about them?
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, we don't get an answer to that, and Jamal gets so freaked out that he unplugs his computer
Right.
and runs away from it. And that is the last we see of that for a little bit. I will say, though, in that scene, we do get kind of an important piece of information brought up, because he brings his sister into the room to see if, she can explain what is going on, and she can't see it.
Right.
So we have established that this entity can only, at this point, be seen by Jamal.
Right.
So then, not long after that, we get introduced to another character, Lenny, who I believe the first time we see her, she just bumps into Jamal in the park, right? On the way to school?
Right, he's standing there looking at the sculpture where he saw the weird stuff happening.
Right.
And she's writing lyrics, presumably, in her notebook, and just runs into him.
Yes.
Yeah.
So she bumps into him, and they have I'm going to say awkward encounter. Okay, was it just me, or did you think for a second, do they like each other?
Yeah, I think they were trying to establish something like that, where it was just awkward, and maybe Jamal thinks she's cute or whatever, and who knows. But it was just, to me, it was like awkward nerds.
Yeah. But yeah, it was just really awkward. I wasn't sure what they were going for in that scene.
Right. Yeah. But, that's how they meet, so it's awkward, and she's writing rap lyrics.
Yeah. How did you feel about that?
Thought that was very strange.
Yeah. I mean...
But good for her.
Yeah, I mean, it's the early 90s. There, that was a real kind of, and especially, all of this is taking place in New York, in an area of Brooklyn. So, that's probably a type of music that just, at least it was thought by the writers that would be a type of music that would speak to young people in the early 90s.
Yeah, go white girl.
Yeah. Yeah, there are definitely some things in this show that I'm like, oh, the writers just really thought that this was a thing with kids.
Yeah.
There are definitely some things that I'm like, oh, okay, I think that the kids had input on this or that or the other. But then there are definitely things that I'm like, oh, the writers just really think kids think that's cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they meet, and then Lenny goes to, and like you said, she was writing rap lyrics, and she's interrupted by Ghostwriter writing her a message. I think it says, Lenny fights for what's right. Because, she's basically writing lyrics about 2020. I don't know.
Right.
It's, about how things need to change, and it's like, oh, this is poignant.
Lenny is our resident activist.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. But yeah, so obviously, she gets freaked out. And the entity also refers to Jamal, asks where Jamal is. So Lenny immediately runs to Jamal to blame him for this thing happening, and she says something to the effect of, I dare you to move the words around. And I'm just like, yeah, do it, Magic Man. I'm like, what's going on here?
Not how it works, Lenny.
Yeah, it's like, and, then we get a scene where both of them see the writing move, but another kid doesn't. So, right. That now they both know that only, at least this point, the two of them can see it, at least as far as they know.
Right.
And, one thing that I forgot to mention, like you said, when Jamal and Lenny first meet, Jamal's at the statue where he saw the weird things the night before, and he finds a button that says Thabto on it.
That's right.
Yeah, which I don't know. That's another one of those things. A lot of the naming conventions in this, I'm like, you guys just went with the first idea, didn't you?
Yeah.
Because when you find out what Thabto means, it's like, really? That was all we could come up with? Okay. I will say, though, during this scene, he also finds a note in his locker that basically warns him to stay away from, the thing that he randomly saw while he was walking home. I'm like, that makes no sense. He didn't think anything of it, at least, not for any, substantial thing, until you guys brought more attention. It's like, hey, random guy that walked past us in the park, don't look at us anymore. It's like, I will now.
Well, and that's how a lot of this was furthered for the mystery, where
right.
we were given clues which made no sense.
Yeah, no. He just randomly finds the coded message. I'm like, okay, so this secret society is really bad at keeping their secrets.
Yeah, but then Gabby, she was given her note.
Yeah, it was left inside her. Yeah, because around this time, we're introduced to Alex and Gabby, who are two Latinx characters who Alex, the older brother, is walking his sister to school, but she stops to tie a shoe. He gets bored, walks away. She gets her backpack stolen.
Right.
So, but eventually when they recover the backpack, she finds another coded message inside the backpack. And I'm like, okay, first of all, just leaving a message is dumb. Second of all, if you really just want to taunt the people, don't put it in code. That doesn't mean anything. That's just so dumb. But I will say that is how they get Alex into the story, is by introducing the code. Because Lenny tells Jamal that Alex, who I don't know if you... Oh, no. Yeah, it was pretty explicit. But Lenny's family lives upstairs from Alex's family's bodega, where they all live.
Right.
So...
Alex loves mysteries.
Yes, that is Alex's character trait. He loves mysteries.
And he is such an arrogant little shit.
He is.
And, and he owns it.
Yeah.
You gotta dig it.
And I have to say, like, at first I was like, okay, is he a dork too? I was like, no, he's actually a little more arrogant than Jamal. I mean, he definitely says some things that he can't live up to, but he has a bit more attitude to him that I'm like, he's just not as straight-laced as Jamal. Jamal is just too nice, Jamal
is like the Cheaty of the group, for any of you who watch The Good Place.
Oh, yes, he is. He really is. Except Cheaty doesn't at all think he's cool.
Right. And so, I know that Alex...
Teddy. Sorry, go ahead.
It's alright. I know that Alex, he likes mysteries and stuff, but he's got a letter jacket. So he feels like the jock of the group. And, so this, I think we're buying into a couple of, regular, not stereotypes, but archetypes.
Right. Hold on just a second. Sorry, just had to close the shades. Hopefully it won't be as big of a thing. But yeah, I will say that they're, they didn't try to make him look nerdy or anything like that. So they are kind of diversifying a little bit. I will say, though, that Teddy, this is, at least in my memory, the one and only story where Alex's detective skills are a plot point.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like it's really just something that they use to get him into this story. And then, I mean, I will say that after this, they're all detectives. So it's not really anything that would, but he's not, like, thought of as better than any of them, which, I mean, understandable.
Sure. Yeah, and Gabby is just the perfect bratty attitude little sister.
Yeah.
She was delightful. And
Yes.
I loved her.
Okay. Thank you. On rewatch of this show, I realized, in my opinion, the most natural of all of them is Gabby.
Yes. Yeah.
She's just, I mean, one would say that she's not being asked to really stretch, but something about her attitude is just so fun.
Yeah. She's terrific.
Yeah.
Yeah. I liked her a lot.
Yeah. But yeah, so Alex and Jamal go to the dumpster. I can't even remember what takes them to the landfill or the garbage dump, wherever it is that they find the backpacks. But they go there, and that is where it is revealed that Alex can also see. Oh, you know what? Totally skipped an important part, because after Jamal and Lenny discover that they can see it, they go to Jamal's house, and that is when they kind of get to the bottom of what this thing is.
Right.
Because, I mean, once again, the show sometimes is thick on purpose. But this thing is writing to them over and over and over, and they just keep screaming at the computer. And I'm just like, really? You just look like mental patients. What's going on?
He can't hear you.
No.
He uses words that he types or moves around. So what do we do to communicate with Ghostwriter?
Oh, they're finally like, hey, he's writing to us. Maybe we should write to him. I'm like, yup. We all got there 15 minutes ago, guys.
That's right. That's exactly right.
But yeah, so they eventually write to him, and they start, asking him questions, and he establishes, number one, he establishes that he's a he, which I thought was a weird thing. I'm like, you're a disembodied entity. Would your gender really matter that much?
But for kids, they need label. So,
yeah, well, and also, I mean, we were talking about how progressive the show is. They're very progressive when it comes to matters of race, and actually there are a couple of instances in later episodes where when characters do make sexist comments, they're not only corrected, but in some places they're punished.
Nice.
Yeah, but the one thing that they don't address, and I mean, it's the 90s, unfortunately, wasn't being talked about that much, is there are no out queer characters.
Sure.
Not to say that there aren't any. There's coding all over the place, but there are none that are, specifically mentioned. And this is one of those places where I'm just like, because I believe in the second episode, like, his gender is mentioned as more ambiguous, but obviously that was filmed before this one was. But yeah, he's mentioned as a he, and they do this thing where they have to, like, convince him to stay because he's lost and he's scared and all this kind of stuff, and they make him feel better. But eventually they get around to naming him. And I have to say, this is like the worst example of a writer's room. So I just have to play this clip real quick.
What do we call him?
I don't know. He said he was a person, or at least he used to be.
You mean he's a ghost?
I don't know. Maybe we can call him,
Ghost person.
Ghost person? Like what? Yo, ghost person?
Okay, how about Ghostwriter?
Now you're talking. He's a ghost, and he writes to us. Ghostwriter.
That's right. That's a good writer's room. Take the first pitch that doesn't sound ridiculous and is the most on the nose.
There you go.
Yeah. Not ghost person, ghostwriter. Because he's a ghost and he writes to us. Ghostwriter. Yeah. That's good. Oh, but yeah, I was just like, when I heard that, I was like, okay, all right. I mean, that clip, actually, the end of that clip is played in the from here on in the intro of every single episode. So they apparently they were like, see, it's quick and it's to the point. Kids will get it. I'm like, yeah, kids will get it. Adults will kind of snicker, but all right.
It'll do.
Yeah.
It'll do.
I will say, were you at all like thrown off by the fact that they introduced these characters in an intro before you meet any of them?
No.
No. No,
because I think that was the convention for a lot of shows at the time anyway. So, I didn't mind. It's a kids show. We need to familiarize ourselves with who we're talking to and about.
Right.
And we're gonna meet them eventually, so it's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't bother me.
Yeah. All right. So I just want to jump into some highlights here and there. So, we are starting to kind of get the shape of what this plot is. There's some weird things that are wearing some double-sided masks that are going around stealing kids' backpacks. We are also introduced, the first time that we meet Alex in the arcade, there are some kids, 4 kids, playing this game called Double Defenders, which I didn't mind the name Double Defenders, but then they mentioned another video game and they were like, yeah, Double Defenders, or, oh, Turbo Heads is real fun. I'm like, Turbo Heads? Who's going to play a game called Turbo Heads? And I'm just like, okay, I get, you want to make up your own stuff, but they also name check the X-Men. I'm like, you really are going to throw, you're really going to throw Turbo Heads against X-Men?
Yeah.
I wouldn't do that. Double Defenders, I think, though, is passable. That sounds like it could have been a video game to me.
Sure.
And, if you look at this machine at all, first of all, did you get to look at the machine that these kids are playing on in the arcade?
Not really.
Okay.
It reminded me of Dragon's Lair, so... Sure.
I will say, it's got this artwork of, characters with 2 heads all over it.
Those I saw.
There's something. But did you notice the controls that they were playing with?
No.
They looked like basically they had just taken Sega Genesis controllers and glued them on top because they were controllers sitting on top of this arcade box. And I was like, I don't remember ever seeing an arcade machine built like that. If you were going to play a multi-person game, it was always a button and a joystick built into the console, not an actual controller glued on top.
Right.
I'm like, I don't know what you guys think you're getting away with. To me, putting a paper mache button and a stick on top of it would have been easier.
Indeed.
But I don't know. Maybe they think they're creating a new look for arcades. But if you pay attention, these kids are calling themselves these weird names like, Cool Kicker and, the Great Gumption and Awesome Asshole, just these weird names. And I'm just like, okay. All right. Like I said, the naming is not the strength of this show.
No, it is not.
Oh, but yeah. So eventually, they get this code, and I remember the moment I looked at this code, I knew exactly what type of code it was. I was like, oh, this is the code that you switch the letters with other letters, blah blah blah. And I realized, where I learned that from was this show. And of course, you know, it is a PBS show. So obviously the main thrust of this show is teaching kids about reading and writing. So everything that centers around reading or writing or those types of things are going to be extra stressed. Those are the things that we're probably going to get the most frustrated by, because those are the things that they're going to let the kids. I don't know if you noticed it, but there were a lot of scenes where in most shows, if a kid started to write a sentence, they would like cut away and you'd come back after the kid had written the letter. They don't do that in a lot of this. Like there are times towards the end where they at least cut away while they begin the sentence, but you come back when they end the sentence, because that's the main point of the show. They want you to see this writing. They want you to think, to have this thought process of what's going on kind of thing. But when Alex is introducing the idea of breaking this code, he introduces a number code and shows us how to do it. And I'm like, there are no numbers on this page. Why are we learning this code? It's obviously not a number code. But okay, they wanted to teach us this number code. Whatever. But they go through the number code, the scramble code, and then they decide on replacing letters with other letters. And I do remember learning this when I was a kid. You count the number of letters, and whichever one there's more of, that's the E, because it's the most used letter in the language. So I've used this for I don't know how many codes that thought they were, oh, this is real cool. I was just like, okay, there's more S's than anything. That's E. Okay, I've got this. Here you go. My mother got this like what is it? Like a escape room game. It's got like 4 different escape room puzzles for you, and some of those have that thing in there, and they've got this whole like cipher on the side where you're supposed to turn things, and I'm just like, what's the letter with the most? Okay, that's the easier way to do this. It's like, I don't need that little dial. I learned this by watching Ghostwriter. But yeah, so they figure out this code, and I believe the first one is talking about their next meeting or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And at the end of this, because they discover that at the end of the code, there's still some words that are scrambled up, and they're like, oh no, what are we going to do? And because Gabby has been helping them with this the whole time, because Ghostwriter's not involved. And they're talking about, well, how do we do this without Gabby? We need to talk to Ghostwriter. And then, of course, Ghostwriter introduces himself to Gabby, and she screams, understandably, because words start moving around in the room. That's just weird.
And this was confusing to me.
Yeah.
Because either I missed it or it wasn't explained.
Mm-hmm.
How does Ghostwriter determine who he's going to show himself to?
Okay, I'm glad you brought this up, because this is something that we're going to see more and more in this show. It is established, especially in this episode, the way Ghostwriter gets around is by moving from word to word. But apparently, and this is never explicitly stated, but it is often alluded to, that he can, at the very least, sense people and sense their hearts, for lack of a better phrase.
Okay.
So, like, he can sense the type of person that they are, because there are a couple of times later in the series that he will introduce himself to people that maybe the team doesn't like, but because Ghostwriter says they're cool, we know they've got to be cool, kind of thing.
But it's not explained in this particular arc.
Sure. No.
That's okay.
Right, and it's never explicitly stated. I mean, he does say... I think, because they do ask at some point, why us? I think it's maybe Alex did. And I think he said, like, it just felt right or something like that. Okay. So he does establish that, like, it's a feeling, like he does feel them kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, it's never, for a show that over-explains so much, this is definitely something that it didn't explain super well.
Yeah, or at all.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like I said, it's brought out in a couple of lines here and there, but if you miss those lines, or, you know, they just didn't resonate, you know, super well for you, then it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he introduces himself to Gabby, and I will say, for each one of them, he gives them like a phrase to introduce himself to them. So like for Lenny, it was Lenny fights for what's right. For Alex, it's Alex, lover of mysteries. For Gabby, it's thirst for knowledge.
Right.
Something like that. Yeah. So, you know, now that we've got Gabby in the group, you know, she kind of comes in, and I believe it's around this time. Let's see. Oh, okay. This is something I did want to ask you about. So I don't know if you noticed, but Alex and Gabby share a room. Did you notice her little curtain walls?
Yes. So great.
Yeah. There are other episodes where she actually like lets down. Actually, I think she did towards the end of this scene where she actually let down curtains all the way around her bed. But the first time we see it, it's just one right next to her bed so that she can laugh at her brother behind her curtain wall.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, and because I didn't mention, we actually get introduced to a fifth character who is not added to the team in this episode because she was actually already added to the team in the pilot. But the character of Tina is introduced, and she's introduced as honestly, I will say, of all of the characters, she's given some of the most, like, at least explained examples of like character, because she's Gabby's best friend. She is interested in film, and apparently we discover in her first scene that Alex has a huge crush on her. Right.
And here again, props to diversity, because she's Asian.
Yeah, she is Vietnamese. We one thing that I do like about this show is that not only is the cast so diverse, but we also get to see, pretty much all of their home life. Some of them less than others, but and some of them only in certain episodes. But we get to see all of their home life. That's one thing that I wrote down is I love the dynamic of the Fernandez family.
Yes.
Like the mom and dad, just the way that they relate to each other and the way that they talk to their kids. Not only is it kind of a breath of fresh air just to kind of see on television, but they're also just a fun family. Like, I believe them as a family.
Yep. Yeah. Agreed.
Whereas, and I kind of like, at least I feel like there's chemistry between Lenny and her dad, but this definitely was a clunky scene between them that they had in this first story.
Most of the scenes are clunky between the two of them.
Sure. I will say, though, I think that it wasn't really clear. I don't know if it was a directing note or if it was just the actress wasn't really sure how she was supposed to respond. But it is clear that they do this bit with, you need to come home to eat Dad's special sauce. And the way that she would always say it, like, it was written like it was sincere, but she would always say it like, Dad's secret sauce. And I'm like, okay, I'm confused. Does she like this sauce or does she hate it? Right.
Yeah. It wasn't clear.
No. And I think I do remember in later episodes really liking their dynamic. But they're definitely still searching at this point. But yeah, okay, so they figure out where their next meeting is or whatever, and then they unscramble the letters to find out when it is, and then they introduce the concept of them all getting together. Because Jamal is trying to read through all of the Double Defenders books to try to figure out more about this group. Because
Right.
All they really know about them is that they're fixated on double defenders. He's trying to read all of these books by himself. And all I'm thinking is, you have a magical entity that survives on words. What are you doing?
Right.
But okay. But he just starts typing in, I need some help. And then Ghostwriter's like, help Jamal. And he does it a couple more times. Jamal even says later, he was like, I thought he was just thick. But he eventually carries that message to the rest of the group. And so they all come in like, what's wrong? And he's like, oh, okay, that's what he was doing. And this is where the concept of the get-together comes out. But I want to play a couple of clips because there are a couple of things that struck me funny in this scene specifically. So just real quick. This first one, I can't resist.
This is so cool. It's kind of like being beamed up.
It's better than the telephone because we can communicate no matter where we are.
Yeah. Ghostwriter invented texting.
Right. Yes.
I mean,
Totally.
that's basically what it is. It's basically like, for some reason, these 4 kids are the only people in the world that have a smartphone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true.
And they can just instantly communicate with each other. But once again, when it comes to decide, because, they decide that they don't want to just keep saying, help, because number one, that's kind of alarming.
Right.
But they are trying to figure out what to call it. And once again, we get one of these fun little naming conventions. So let's hear this.
We should make up a special word that we can use when we need help or we need everyone to come over.
How about yo?
Nah, flash.
Fly. Boogie. Yuck, that sounds like booger.
Ah, rally.
Yeah, like a stock car rally.
We're not cars. I like rally too. What does rally mean anyway?
It means to get together.
It's sort of like call to action.
Oh, all right. Rally.
Rally it is.
They all talk Gabby into it, and it's at that moment that they're like, good, because we already made those plans. That's what we were going to call it. I'm just like... I have to say, though, I'm with Gabby. Rally is a dumb word to use to get because when I was a kid, rally for me was like, okay, we're in a sports game and we're behind. Okay,
right.
Everybody rally. Let's bring it together. I mean, there is kind of a let's get together. Let's do this together kind of idea. But like, I'm like, that doesn't really sound to me like a call for everyone to get in the same room. I'm like, okay. But I will say, I'm going with it because it's the name of this podcast. This podcast is called Rally FC because something that they decide upon is that they'll write down rally and then the first letter of their first name so that everyone will know where to go. So this is Rally FC because it's Rally Flying Cow. That's right. Everybody get together. Rally.
Flying Cows assemble!
Yes. But yeah, so eventually, once they've done this and they figure out by reading the books, actually they take my idea and they have Ghostwriter read the books because I'm like,
right.
Duh. I will say though, one thing that I loved that they did is that they were like, Ghostwriter, find out when these people meet. And Ghostwriter goes in, and what does he write down? He doesn't write down the answer. He writes down the reference. I was like, that's right, because Ghostwriter's a teacher. He's not going to do your work for you.
Like, look it up.
Oh, it's great. But yeah, so they figure out, based on the books, where they, what time they usually would meet, based on the message, and they decide that what they're going to do is write, because they have figured out who one of these people is, they're going to write that person a message to tell him that the ceremony is no longer going on so that Alex can take his place. Now, the problem with this is if you watch the scene, Alex wasn't necessary. There was no reason for him to be there because the whole time the rest of the group is like tucked behind a barricade somewhere and they're recording the whole thing. All Alex does is not know the name that the weird gimmick name that he's supposed to go by, and mess everything up so then everybody gets chased. I'm just like, there was no need. No need.
No. And their ceremony was dumb.
Oh, their ceremony
no kids do that.
was so dumb.
Kids do that. Yeah.
No, okay.
Nobody did.
Here's what I think is hilarious about that ceremony. So they record it, okay? And so later, when everybody kind of confronts them, and they're like, hey, we know you guys did this, they play it to the full arcade of these people. And it's so funny because, like, you know, you're going around the room, and most of these kids are like mad, like, these kids stole my quarters. But they go on one girl, and she's got this look like, that's what they said? That's dumb. And then they go to the kids, and they're just like, yeah, it is real dumb. Why are they playing this? Nobody was supposed to know. That's why it was secret. But yeah, I'm just like, woo, that thing. Yeah. Oh,
Can we talk about
go ahead.
Calvin?
Oh, yes. Okay. One quick thing before we talk about Calvin, because I do want to talk about Calvin. But something that I do real quick want to mention, because we've discovered that Ghostwriter invented texting, but Ghostwriter also was a prep for Twitter, because there is a scene when they're writing the fake message for the kid so that he won't go to the secret meeting. And they're writing down a message and they're like, okay, now let's put it in code. And they're like, we don't have time to put this whole thing in code before school. First of all, I'm like, you guys do so much before school. When I was in school, I woke up like 15 minutes before I had to go down to get on the bus. You guys wake up super early for school, but okay. But then they're like, I know, let's make it shorter. I'm like, and then they're just taking out sentences that aren't necessary. I'm like, you guys are just preparing us for Twitter. I see you, Ghostwriter. I see you. Yep. 140 characters or less, or what is it now? What is it, like 240 or 280 or something like that? I don't know. I barely use Twitter. I just thought that was funny. But yes, we have to talk about Calvin, because I have never felt like punching a 12-year-old so much in my life.
But he did such a beautiful job.
Okay, well,
and can you blame him? Because his mom.
Oh, jeez. Yes. Okay. So I have to say that Calvin in this episode is played by Will Horneth. And I say that because this is actually the only story arc that he plays this character. But he's replaced by a kid that is, if possible, even better. Just as hateable, just as, you know, they basically look very different. They're, you know, smug, blonde 12-year-olds. But Will Horn... Okay, did you ever see the movie The Sandlot?
Yeah.
Okay. That kid, the scene where the organized baseball team, Little League team, comes and picks on them, he's the lead kid that's picking on them.
Dude!
Yeah. That's him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And for years, I thought he was the main Calvin. I had forgotten that they replaced him after this episode.
Okay.
But yeah, no. Calvin is so insufferable. And okay, was it just me, or did you just want to straight up slap him when he looks at Jamal and says, "What up, homie?" I'm like, oh my God. There's so much in that I'm just like, like I said, never wanted to punch a 12-year-old so hard.
Yeah. But, his mom is the reason.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, his mom and his bird.
The kid's a dick. Let's be clear.
Yes.
But
don't pull any punches.
Mom,
yeah.
And the bird.
Yeah.
So yeah, but he gets his comeuppance and everything's fine. But the reason we meet Calvin is because they find out that his store that his parents own is where
they ordered the Thabto buttons
were ordered
and got the masks. Right.
Yes, and the masks. Right.
Right.
Yeah. Shall we tell them what Thabto stands for?
Oh my God. I actually pulled that clip.
Did you?
Yeah. Do you want to hear it?
Yes.
Okay.
Of course.
All right. Oh, jeez.
With our quarters by our side. With our quarters by our side. We'll do a double defender's run. We'll do a double defender's run. And the tournament is ours. And the tournament is ours. All will bow down to our powers. All will bow down to our powers. And know that Thabtos are next to none. And know that Thabtos are next to none. 2 heads are better than 1. 2 heads are better than 1.
2 heads are better than 1.
That's what their team name was, Thabto.
First idea.
Yep.
Had to be.
Yeah. Yeah. So these kids were stealing kids' backpacks, just the money.
Yep.
And the backpacks got returned.
Well, they were returning them to a landfill.
Right, yes.
I mean, yes, they were hung up so that they weren't, thrown away or anything. But yeah, they're not, nicely returning them.
But it was just to get the quarters so they could play in this Double Defenders tournament.
This is what happens, children, when you take games way too seriously. Oh my good. I will say though, I also have to call out one more at least celebrity at the time at least citing for
seriously.
Mark Lynn Baker, Larry from The Perfect Strangers. Yeah, who played the cop who was for some reason really interested in this petty theft.
Yeah. I am one step away from that guy.
Oh, really?
Yes. Yeah, so it made me super happy to see Mark Lynn Baker walk through the door. And it was just it was so benign. I mean, yes, he was very stern, and the kids needed to get their money back. But the way this was all resolved was so goddamn ridiculous.
It really is.
Oh my God. And so we're going to talk to your parents, okay?
Yep.
But
this is serious, kids. What I loved is, we're going to get your money back. Sure. Okay.
They were all like, yay! Yeah. What a gift to see him at the end of this story arc. Yeah. It made me super
contrived, but I love that they got him to play. I mean, I will say that this show, as silly and cheesy as it is, was at the time, I mean, this is only the second episode, but eventually they would get guest stars to the point where this was basically the, preteen version of Sesame Street with the level of guest stars that they would get.
Yeah, I looked at the IMDb credit list, and a lot of heavy hitters were on this show.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them were musical acts that, I never knew. But, they had a lot of bigger names as well.
Yeah, I mean, Julia Stiles was on it. Yep. Dule Hill was on it. I mean, this was a thing. Yeah. So,
it was pretty crazy. All right, so obviously we're wanting to wrap this up. Is there anything else that you want to mention about this that you noticed?
I thought that the animation was a little overwrought. I thought it could be simpler.
The animation for Ghostwriter?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. So it could have been simpler. I do like the chemistry of the team, especially how, I feel like Jamal feels like once they solved the thing, they're never getting back together again. And
right. Yeah. That was an
it-
interesting, because I was like, oh, okay, so you've solved this, so you can't be friends anymore.
Well, right. And so but I thought that it was really lovely that they are definitely a team.
Right.
And they'll get to go on and be together more often.
Right.
So I thought that the casting, for the most part, like these kids, I believe that they would hang out together.
Yeah.
And
want
to work together. Yeah.
Yeah. No,
I really.
Yeah, they do have good chemistry. And I will say, while Gabby is definitely the standout for me as far as, just being natural and not seeming so much like a stage kid,
Right.
I think they all, for the most part, give decent performances for their age.
I cared about all of them.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's important. I will say one thing that I thought was funny, because, he decides that the way to bring them together is, the Thabtos were a team. We can be a team too. And he goes back to the store and he gives them all what he calls official Ghostwriter pens. What does that mean? A pen on a string. That's an official Ghostwriter pen, folks. I will say, though, when I was a kid, I had an official Ghostwriter pen. Like, it had, had the word Ghostwriter and everything. Oh, yeah. I had, workbooks, and I had, they only put out, a couple of narrative books, but they had, some, case books where you could, solve things and stuff here and there. It was really cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I will say I understand why they didn't have, the word Ghostwriter on their pen, because then people are going to be like, what's Ghostwriter? It's a secret. Right. That kind of thing. But, yeah, I just thought an official Ghostwriter pen. Really? It's just a pen on a string, Jamal. Okay, thanks. Thanks for that. But, yeah, no, I thought that this was... I had a lot of fun with this, as silly and cheesy as it was. I actually enjoyed watching it.
Yeah. Again, it could have, some of the pacing was kind of a pain in my ass, but sure. I didn't hate it.
Sure. No, well, and I mean, that's good. I mean, honestly, for most kids shows, that's a ringing endorsement.
Yeah.
If an adult can watch it and say, I didn't hate it. Good show. All right. Well, to round this all out, I have a couple of questions for you. Okay. So, first of all, in a lot of my shows, I like to kind of, pick out who was the all-star of the episode, who was your favorite, who, whatever way you want to classify it, whether it was the character you had the most fun with, somebody that made you laugh, or somebody that you just thought was the best in the episode. So for this, I'm calling it your top suspect. So, Adena, for this arc of Ghostwriter, who was your top suspect?
Oh, God. It's a three-way tie.
Is it?
It's Gabby, Calvin, and his mom.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean... but Gabby sort of ekes out the win, I think.
I will say Gabby's mine.
Yeah. Gabby's great. So,
well, to me, it's even more impressive because if you look at it, she's actually the youngest one in the cast. All of the rest of them, I believe, are 2 years older than her. Okay. And what's funny is that her and Tina are supposed to be at least around the same age. I believe later on, Tina goes into middle school while Gabby still has 1 year left in elementary school. But the actress who played Tina, Tramon Tran, was actually the same age as the whole rest of the cast. So they were just casting her 2 years younger than she was.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely Gabby for me. She just, to me, not only was the most natural, but was the most fun. Like you said, she was a bratty sister and was great at it.
Yes, she was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So then, what is your, I'm going to explain this, your rewind moment, your moment in the episode that was either your favorite or the moment that made you the most go, what?
Well, the one that I was like, what, was the whole freaking stupid ceremony. That thing
Sure.
was totally jacked up.
Sure.
But my favorite, honestly, was when Mark Lynn Baker walked through the door. So,
Sure.
I mean, yeah.
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 All right. I will say mine, as far as like, oh, really? Was the secret handshake. Because they come up, and I think it's when it's just Lenny, Jamal, and Alex. When Alex has just been added to the team, and Alex is like, we gotta have a secret handshake. And it is the dumbest secret handshake. Number one, it's way too long to remember. Number two, it's just like it's one of those things that you would probably think is cool as a kid, but it doesn't film well, and it just looks goofy. I will say, I think it's referenced in maybe like one other story, but for the most part, it's really never mentioned again. And I'm like, good choice. But yeah. All right. So with that being said, Adena, I have a couple of questions for you. First of all, if Ghostwriter appeared to you, would you write back to him? And if so, what would you say?
Well, shit, yeah, I'd write back to him.
Sure, absolutely. A magical writing entity talks to you? Absolutely, I'm writing to him.
Yeah, and then I'd probably ask him who he was.
I mean, I think they at least at this point, he didn't know in this episode. Because they did ask him, you know, who are you?
He knew that he was a person.
Right. Or at least he used to be. They bring that up a lot.
But yeah, I mean, I'd love to know who he was and what he did and what kind of person he was and what happened to him.
Sure. All right. So that actually goes right into the next question, which is, in your opinion, based on what you know, who do you think Ghostwriter, who or what do you think Ghostwriter is?
Like, based on what I've seen, I feel like he might be part of Jamal's family.
Do you have any, like, idea?
I think, so his stuff, his book was in the basement with all his family stuff. And his grandmother brings out his grandfather's, no, is it his grandfather's trumpet?
Yes. They bring out the trunk, which was his great-great-grandfather's, and then she brings out the trumpet, which was her father's.
Her father's, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and they spend a little time on that, which I thought was a really lovely scene. It's not how you play a trumpet, but I thought that was really neat. And so I just, you know, given what we've been getting, that it's his family stuff. The book was with his family stuff.
Was in his house, right.
Yeah, and we're talking about ancestors and people in the family. And so, you know, only based on these 5 episodes, that's what I was thinking, that he was a former family member of some sort.
Jamal's family. Okay. I will say that in 2010, the guy that I believe he was the producer gave an answer, because this was a mystery that basically spanned the entire series, and I didn't say it before, but they never answered it. They never answered it in terms of on the show, but like I said, he eventually did give an interview in which he revealed. Would you like to hear what he said?
I would very much.
Okay, so I'm going to read this. Okay, so Ghostwriter producer and writer Kermit Frazier revealed in a 2010 interview that Ghostwriter was...
Oh my god! That is the best thing ever and
Okay,
the worst thing ever.
I was about to say, I kind of like it, but it's super dark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Oh, that's nuts.
All right. Well,
Okay.
Adena, thank you very much for being on here. You've only got 5 minutes left, so I'm going to do this quick. But if there is anything that you would like to, you already mentioned at the top of the episode, you've got that show on Netflix, which definitely everyone needs to check out.
Yes, check it out. Sweet Magnolias, everybody.
Sweet Magnolias on Netflix. Check that out. But also, I thought it would be cool, like, if there's anything, I mean, you can share whatever you want, but if there is anything in pop culture that highlights the voices of either women or people of color, we'd love to hear anything that you're enjoying.
Well, I have talked about this show on prior podcasts with you, but I rewatched it during this time.
Yeah.
Orphan Black, motherfuckers.
Oh, yeah.
I rewatched the whole thing, and then I got to watch the script read they did of 2 episodes that it was a fundraiser for a couple of places. And dudes, Tatiana Maslany, who's right now in Perry Mason.
Perry Mason. Yeah, I haven't seen it yet, but I'm interested. Yeah.
I just finished Love, Victor, which is on Hulu.
Okay.
Beautiful, brilliant, beautifully cast, and diverse. During this time, and here's the thing, when I moved here, I was so grateful for the diversity, but when I started to watch commercials and television, I was like, where are my people of color?
Yep.
And so now, because I said it so often in front of the television, my husband now notices and he gets really mad. So I've been watching a lot of TV, trying to make sure that, it's not all white people.
Right.
And actually, Sweet Magnolias does a really lovely job of diversity in the show.
Sure.
Yeah.
Nice.
So I'm really proud of them. One of the leads is a beautiful African American, Heather Headley, and there are lots of people of color all over this show. So yeah, there you go. That's what I got.
Sounds good. Awesome. Well, mine is something that honestly I'm just shocked mostly isn't available free for streaming. I mean, Amazon and a couple of other things did this thing where they were making a whole bunch of, things available for free, at least for the month of June. But for one reason or another, this one was never out. And to me, it's kind of the most poignant right now. And that is Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing. If you've never seen that film, it is a great film, and it is perfect for right now. It is something that needs to be seen and needs to be talked about. What I love about it is that, other films that for some reason win Academy Awards, they don't give a solution to racism because there isn't one. But it asks the questions because those questions need to be asked. And it's a great film. If you haven't seen it, you need to check it out. See it. Yes, absolutely. But thank you so much, Adena, for coming on and doing this with me. I don't know if I'm going to have any repeat guests, but you're always welcome to come on. You can come on here and talk about whatever you want to, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Adena, and we will see everyone next time.
Okay. Goodbye.
Ghostwriter, what a trip.